live yet. We probably are. I mean, it says we are, but that doesn't mean anything because,
This is YouTube, and
yeah.
we look for facts.
Okay. It looks as though we are live, but I'm going to check the actual stream link.
Well, can you provide me the links?
Yes, I can. Okay. Here is the link from earlier. Anyway, welcome everybody to another Scratchcast. I'm your host Randall Graves, and I'm joined by Proto Mario. No, not really, but it is what it is.
But I assure you, we are open.
Yes, I'm not even supposed to be here today. No, wait, that's not my line. Today we are going to be talking about this particular WikiHow. Well, I don't even want to call it an article. Post. How to understand asexual people.
First hermaphroditic porn, and now this.
You won't find any futanari here or whatever. Okay, so asexuality in the world of biological reproduction means that a single organism can produce offspring identical to the parent. But in terms of human sexuality, it simply means a person feels no sexual attraction. The important thing to remember when trying to understand asexuality is that people who identify as such are not inherently different from you, aside from the fact that they experience, or more accurately, don't experience, sexual attraction differently, even though they just got done saying they don't experience sexual attraction.
Oops.
So, part 1, Understanding Asexuality. Learn what it means to be asexual. Asexuality is a sexual orientation that means a person feels no sexual attraction to people of any gender. Why would you need an orientation for that? That sounds like a lack of orientation, doesn't it?
Yes, and I don't know why they chose to use this. This only creates more confusion as they say gender when they're talking about sexual attraction. So they could have just said sex, because now when you're saying gender, that's only going to engender confusion.
So,
Be-
asexuality is basically the atheism of LGBT. It's a lack of
QIA
orientation.
plus divided by 2.
We haven't worked out the equation quite yet. I mean, they're still working on it, so those gender therapists aren't done yet. However, a person who identifies as asexual can still choose to have sex, can still love, can still be involved with a romantic partner or get married, and can still engage in normal relationships. So, not asexual at all, even by the definition that they're going for.
I just can't wait to see the mental gymnastics on how that one makes sense.
And I'm seriously so tired of reading the wording identifies as or I identify as. Well, good for
Because,
you, but that doesn't make it real.
right, people can identify as what's a common one? Robot helicopters or
Yeah,
something.
attack helicopter is the meme, I believe. I'd like to identify as a pet rock.
I'd like to identify as Chuck Rock.
So, asexuality doesn't describe what a person chooses to do, but rather how a person feels. Oh boy, so basically, we're back to the gender fluid line of reasoning. Asexual people have emotional needs, feel attraction to others, and can even feel arousal. They just don't feel sexual attraction.
That
Okay, I guess maybe I'm just getting definitions confused, but they're saying feel attraction, don't feel sexual attraction. Isn't attraction based in sexuality?
that was the impression I was under, but let's see what they have to say about all of this.
It's like words have no meaning anymore. So let's see. Many asexual people will still identify as lesbian, gay, straight, bisexual, or pansexual, attracted to people, here we go, any gender or sexual orientation. Any gender, because, it's not just two, it's 56.
Yes, and how can you be attracted to Never mind. Sexual orientation. I don't get. I don't know how you can be attracted to a sexual orientation or a person of a sexual orientation. That doesn't make sense. That's a redundant term. And pansexual, I was thinking that was some kind of special brand of fictional pedophilia, but this seems
It's either
worse.
that or people that take their Dragon Ball GT fandom too far, or special attraction to cookware. I'm not sure.
Well, that explains the whole Yang Sylph issue in Final Fantasy IV.
Asexuality is not the same as having a low libido, which can be caused by medical or health issues, nor is it the same as repressing one's sexual desires. Thanks for telling us. Okay,
Yeah,
so here we
that was
have
enlightening.
here we have this great image. Asexuality umbrella. If ever there was
So
a thing that wasn't real.
I almost wish there was, because maybe there's an asexuality T virus that would get rid of this nonsense.
There's the episode name, by the way. Asexuality nonsense. Uh, so there's gray asexual and demisexual, which, as I said earlier, apparently means that you like to have sex with aliens and demihumans.
Or you're attracted to people that know how to cast demi.
There we go. Understand the asexuality umbrella. As with any sexual orientation, the label asexual is a generalization that doesn't explain or represent everyone who identifies that way, which is kind of
Why it's an
stupid because,
unnecessary label.
yeah, like, why would you even. How can you even have a term then if you're saying it doesn't really have a true definition? So here we are, all humans are unique and individual, which I'll agree with, but and sexual orientation exists on a spectrum, here it comes, of needs, desires, interests, and attractions. Think of asexuality as an umbrella term that describes people who identify as asexual, gray asexual, and demisexual. I feel like they just keep making up more new words for things.
That seems to be what it's all about. Let's Somebody's sitting in a boardroom, or they're sitting in some university auditorium, coming up with new ways to coin things that didn't need coining.
So apparently, gray asexual means that a person experiences sexual attraction, but either not very often or only to a minimal extent. So,
This is about as redundant as the term non-atheist. There's already a term for that, people. It's called theist. Just like there's already a term for people who sometimes experience sexual attraction. It's called a sexual human being.
yeah, demisexual is actually, I think it's the worst offender here because demisexual describes a person who only feels sexual attraction to people with whom a close emotional bond has been formed. So basically, your average person who is not a complete slut, for lack of a better word. I know I'm going to get
Not
in trouble for that one, slut shaming and whatnot.
not a bro who's not Broseph Jones who's like, yeah, bro, let's let's go rail some chicks, dude.
I mean, this is what happens when you detach sexual acts so much from emotions that people think that it's some kind of special thing to require a bond with the person that they sleep with. I'm blown away. I really am.
Well, hookup culture and all that.
There's something that needs to die. I believe we'll have to do a topic on the whole removing the stigma of STDs at some point, but that's for another time. So we're blessed with another image here. Asexuality. So it has two little arrows. It points to abstinence and celibacy, and of course they have the no symbol over them as that's not what it means.
So, and which I enjoy, because what it basically means is they're saying, oh well, and a quote asexual person is too cowardly to be honest and admit what they truly are. So to to conform and join the crowd, they do something that apparently they do not experience any attraction to, which seems odd that they could do that, considering if they don't have attraction to it, you would perhaps lose some ability to feel sensation. But right, they experience arousal, but they don't experience sexual attraction. So I'm sure there's a great, well researched, heavily cited explanation of how this works.
Oh, as usual. Differentiate asexuality from abstinence and celibacy. Abstinence is the deliberate choice to refrain from sexual activity, while celibacy is the deliberate choice to refrain from sexual activity in marriage or marriage
So
like
that
relationships. I'm pretty sure that's not what that means.
yeah, I'm pretty sure celibacy meant you just weren't going to have sex, but please, by all means.
These choices may be made for religious, philosophical, moral, or other reasons. Asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction, but not necessarily a lack of sexual appetite. This means asexual people can be abstinent or celibate, sexually active through masturbation, sexually
So,
active with
MGTOW,
partners. Oh man. This, wow. So basically, they're just saying, like, okay, we defined asexuality at the beginning of this post. However, people can still be asexual and not be those things. It's like, so what's the point of being asexual then, or saying you are?
right? You wouldn't say, "Well, I'm homosexual, but I'm going to go have sex with some women right now." That doesn't make any sense.
You wouldn't say I'm a Christian and I don't believe in God. You wouldn't say I'm an atheist and I believe in God. It doesn't make sense. It's a complete antithesis of the definition of the word.
Man, they sure are. They sure are working tirelessly to make this somehow valid.
Number 4. Learn what asexuality isn't. Asexuality is a sexual orientation. How many times do they have to say this? That's distinct from heterosexuality, homosexuality, bisexuality, pansexuality, and other orientations. However, asexuality also has nothing to do with biological sex, gender identity, or gender expression. And being asexual doesn't mean you are aromantic, which means a person feels no romantic attraction to others.
Now, see,
So,
here's my issue with that. Heterosexual, different sex. Homosexual, same sex. Bisexual, two sexes. Asexual, without a sex. So, what what are they? Where are they even trying to go with this? How can it have nothing to do with biological sex when the it's you are using other terms which are inherently based on biological sex?
and
Well, except for pansexuality, that's a redundant term that doesn't need to exist.
seriously, I just want to point out that aromantic is like the slut shaming crowd's dream because it's basically just like, oh, well, it's a special thing, so I really don't feel romantic attraction, but I'm just going to go and have sex with as many people as I want, and it's totally okay because it's who I am.
And it's logical.
Sure.
Except for the part where they don't want to procreate and therefore they don't want the species to continue to exist.
Oh boy, part 2, dating an asexual person. I'm sure it's a blast. I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun. So much to research and learn. Recognize that there are different types of relationships. Who doesn't? Just as there are friendships, mother-daughter relationships, father-son relationships, and innumerable other types of platonic, non-sensual relationships, so too are there many types of romantic relationships aside from just sexual romantic relationships. Dating an asexual person may open your eyes to new types of relationships, which could include, or send you running, romantic non-sexual relationships, which often involve physical affection, cuddling, and commitment. Aromantic
So,
non-sexual.
what was traditionally a relationship up until hookups became so prominent?
Right, I mean, basically this would be the state of your relationship traditionally and up until marriage, I guess. The other thing is aromantic, non-sexual relationships, which involve a deep commitment to one another. While these relationships can include physical affection, there is no sexual or romantic element. I don't even understand what they're trying to say there.
Yeah, that is what my people call a friendship.
Those cis males.
Oh yeah, there I am oppressing again.
2. Communicate openly. Oh, wow, wow, this is great advice. Who would have guessed? Regardless of the circumstances, dating is always about getting to know someone better, and dating someone who identifies as asexual is no different. The key to any relationship is free and open communication. Agreed. It's important to discuss personal boundaries early in any relationship so that partners know what is acceptable, what's unacceptable, and what is and isn't expected of each other. If you are unsure of something, it's always best to just ask. I don't really have too much to go against that. I mean, this is probably the most, aside from the identifies as bit, this is probably the most reasonable thing this whole entire post has said. It's important not to be offended if someone you're dating comes out to you as asexual. It's not an excuse, and it's not an attempt to get out of the relationship. That person is just trying to be honest and open. Well,
Well, considering
perhaps.
how vague the definition of the term is, it seems like it's a whole lot of excuses to me.
And, perhaps if this person is so concerned with what the other person in the relationship thinks, maybe they should quote unquote come out to them before actually getting into a relationship so the other person knows what they're getting into. But I suppose that's a horribly oppressive thing to say because for whatever reason this has been lumped into an LGBT issue.
I'm sure for nothing at all that's political and all about getting the attention and being immediately accepted without any form of criticism.
3. Understand that an asexual person can be intimate, thus defeating the point of your term. Asexual people often partake in romantic partnerships or relationships, but whether a person is open to physical or sexual intimacy depends on the individual. But dating doesn't necessarily require physical or sexual interaction, and two people can develop a strong emotional or romantic relationship with or without a sexual element. Intimacy is much more than just physical touching or sexual activity. And I mean that makes sense, but it's still not something that requires a completely separate definition from that of a regular relationship.
Right, and the almost condescending approach that they have to telling people this is really what really gets me. Like they need to tell people that, oh, it's totally okay, guys. It's not like in this kind of relationship it could be about just caring about each other. Well, that's what you should be doing in any relationship.
Exactly. An asexual partner may or may not be open to sexual activity, so it's important to communicate so that everyone involved is on the same page. Feeling sexual pleasure is different from feeling sexual attraction, and some asexual people can enjoy sex. What?
But
So, wait a second. Okay, sexual attraction is what allows a person to take the step into having sex, which leads to sexual pleasure. I mean, if you're not attracted to the person that you're having sex with, you're not going to enjoy it. And this is not just, a made up thing. There's plenty of situations where you'll hear that a person has enjoyed sex less because, I slept with someone that I wasn't really into and I probably shouldn't have done that.
yes, I have read studies that show, particularly with men, that they are less likely to care about satisfying the other or the partner if they don't care about the person, and so
And I
they're
believe from the female side of things, it's more difficult for them to reach orgasm.
yes, I don't know the specifics of it, but I'm almost certain that that's the case.
I mean, it may not be true for everybody, but conversely, some asexual people are not interested in sex at all and will not be open to exploring a sexual relationship. So, going back to the original definition that they used, which they should really stick to if they're trying to make a consistent argument here, but that's clearly not happening. Number 4, don't expect an asexual person to change.
You have to. You have to accept everything they do.
You also have to adapt to their lifestyle. Asexuality isn't a choice or preference any more than heterosexuality and homosexuality are. And see, of course, by conflating those things, they're leading into the territory of if you disagree with this, you are just a hateful bigot that doesn't understand.
And
Asexuality.
that's why they include it as part of LGBT, so that you can't question it without looking like without somebody calling you a bigot or some other pejorative term.
I'll take words that have lost all meaning for $500, please. Asexuality isn't a problem or disorder, and it isn't caused by abuse or violence. People who identify as asexual don't need to be fixed and aren't going to change based on the person with whom they're in a relationship.
But you have to change.
Well, it's an orientation. I mean, you have to do it. Forget the orientation of the person you're with. I mean, that doesn't matter. Asexuality apparently trumps all.
Trump, I get it.
Yeah, little political humor. Building a wall. Some people who are asexual are not interested in romantic relationships and may just be open to close friendships or non-sexual aromantic relationships. So, friendships and friendships.
Yes, and perhaps they should communicate that to you instead of you apparently just waiting
Right,
on
like,
their whim.
why would you agree to date somebody and then, you throw this out at them? Like, what do you expect them to think? This isn't exactly a common everyday thing. I know that these labels would love to have you believe that, like, every other person is some other divergent from the norm, but that's just not how it works. I guess that's it. We're down to the community Q&A section, which is it's a thing of beauty, I have to tell you. I looked through it earlier and it's wow. um I think it's somewhere in the questions section, but it's actually interesting because they said it's not a disorder or caused by abuse or violence. But then I feel like I read in here that they went on to say, like, oh, well, some people that are asexual actually have experienced, and it's like, okay, so you're saying it's not from that, yet it might be.
Well, these questions do sound like they come from somebody who's 12.
Yeah, I have a crush on a guy who is asexual, and I want to ask him out. What should I do? How about find a boyfriend that is interested in a normal relationship? I'm sorry, that was mean. Ask him out, and more importantly, if he does agree to date, ask him where he is on the asexuality spectrum. He'll bring out, the PowerPoint with the chart and the graph, and he'll show you exactly where he's at on the spectrum.
In the 3-ring binder with the complete explanation of what it means to be asexual.
And don't you dare question those definitions, even if there's glaring contradictions. Everyone is different, and some people are more at ease than others, more relaxed, if you will. Ask him what he feels okay with and what he doesn't, and respect those boundaries. Where does the respect come in for the other person, though?
I mean, there should, in some instances, there should be respect in that person should have enough self-respect to just not go and ask that person.
I like that there's 46 upvotes for this.
I'm sure it comes from Tumblr.
I think I'm asexual, but I want to find the girl of my dreams and get married. How can I change myself? And the answers to this, when the person clearly sounds like they want to do something to get out of whatever it is that they're feeling, it's like, oh, asexuality is not something you can actively change. However, just because you may be asexual does not mean that you can't have a relationship with someone. Many asexual people do get married, and they are completely capable of having happy and healthy relationships. These can be purely romantic, or they can involve sex as well if you're comfortable with it. which once again would defeat the definition of your term because they're saying that they lack sexual attraction and have no interest in the act.
And I'm not sure I understand how you can be romantic without the sexual component of things. I'm sure somebody will come and give an explanation, and the only reason they'll give an explanation is because they feel that they identify with whatever one of these arbitrary labels they want to take up. But
See the gender
they're
fluid comment section, if you will.
right. But while that doesn't mean that every intimate or romantic activity results in or culminates in sexual activity, it is nevertheless a component of romance.
Right. Next question. That one has 48 upvotes. Can an asexual person have babies with their spouse?
Unless they are impotent.
Yeah, but here we go. It's possible. It depends on what the couple is comfortable with doing. If the person is sex repulsed, they might opt for adoption or something else that doesn't involve having sex. Some asexual people will have sex because they want children. This is amazing. Sex repulsed. That's a term now.
Everything's a term now. There's an app for that, there's a term for that.
I honestly barely even know what to say to that. It doesn't. Something doesn't add up.
A lot of things don't add up, but these gender studies majors didn't exactly pass their algebra exams.
The guy I like is asexual. I really like him, but because he's asexual, he has no interest in me. What should I do?
Walk away. Like anybody else who's ever been rejected before. But I already saw the answer ahead of time, so I love what they say in response to it.
Yeah, and before I even read the answer, I'd just like to point out I wonder what their response would be if it was a guy saying that the girl I like is asexual. You know, what should I do with the when it comes to the no interest part? Because you know that, of course, there's going to be a
This
dog barking
right,
again.
this is heading straight on the expressway to rape cultureville.
Yeah, this would be something that would be, quoted and posted in the nice guys subreddit. So here we go with the wonderful WikiHow answer. If a person does not have a sexual interest in you, they can still have a romantic interest in you, even though.
But see, here's where I have the problem. He says he has no interest in me. You don't you unless it's a hookup or deliberately a casual arrangement. When somebody says they're not interested in you, the implication is that they're not romantically interested in you.
Right. You have to clarify what you mean by no interest, which is a fair point, at least. If a person has neither a romantic or sexual interest but wants to be friends, you can certainly be friends with them as well as long as you are understanding that was a mouthful that it is a friendship and nothing more and that you can handle just being friends. So, hashtag friend zone. No. Some people engage in platonic relationships that are not romantic or sexual, but are more committed and intimate than friends. So, like best friends?
I,
Otherwise, if they do not want to be friends, or if you can't emotional and or sexually handle just being friends, then try to find ways to move on. I think you mean emotionally? What?
I mean, nobody with a MD or PhD wrote this, so
Um, I, I saw at the top here. Wait. Okay, so it says that this was reviewed by Jessica B. Casey, MA, Clinical Mental Health Counseling.
all right,
Reviewed, not written.
right.
I'm curious as to what revisions that they made or what review process they went through to allow this to be posted as though it's fact. So yeah, I mean, if somebody has no interest in you, regardless of what ridiculous label they're using, the real answer here is you have to get over it.
just like you used to have to do in the days of yore.
Next question. Can depression play a role in being asexual? If you struggle with your sexuality due to acceptance issues, therefore causing you to be depressed, will this affect your desire to engage in any relationship out of fear of rejection? Oh boy, this is great. Asexuality does not have a cause, it is a state of being.
It kind of reminds me of those MGTOWs who are like, I'm not intellectually superior. It's just a happy coincidence.
Now, wait a second. Everything has a cause. I mean, even being heterosexual, I mean, the reasoning behind that is procreation, the continuation of the species.
And whatever uh, neurological or psychological development that
That doesn't make it any less of a state of being. I mean, that's basically what this sounds like it's saying. It's like, well, if something doesn't have, or since something doesn't have a cause, it's a state of being. But if something does have a cause, it's not.
yeah, that would be one of those situations where somebody didn't study logic well enough. And I mean that's pretty much everybody on YouTube, but
It seems that what you're referring to, not what you are referring to, is the effect that depression can have on any person's libido, regardless of gender identity, sexual, or romantic orientation. Many depressed people do not identify as asexual, and many people who identify as asexual are not depressed. If you're depressed, it's possibly as a result of your sexual confusion, not the other way around. How do you know that?
I imagine this is where the editing came in, the depression part.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. Many people do not identify as asexual. Many depressed people do not. Okay, so just because they don't identify as such means that that's not what they're doing. I mean,
It,
these
isn't
people them.
depression isn't depression a diagnosis?
Yeah, and these people themselves are saying, "Oh, well, you can be asexual and do this, and you can be asexual and do that." But for some reason, like this is where you draw the line.
They have to draw the line somewhere.
Oh boy, here we go. I'm a virgin, almost 21-year-old female, and I think I'm asexual. My mom says it's because I haven't met someone with whom I'm attracted to yet. Could she be right?
So basically, the female version of most of my friends from high school.
Most people know their sexual and orientations pretty early by age 20, or clearly by age 20. If you feel asexual now, then you will most likely be asexual for life. Asexual for life, yo. And that's okay. Try to give your mom time, although it's frustrating. You may have known this for a while, but your mom has only just found out, so it may take time for her to realize that you were serious about this. Okay, first of all, she didn't tell us in the question what makes her think she's asexual. She had to clarify that she's a virgin, which leads me to believe that it's some sort of lack of experience that makes her feel like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me. Which, by the way, isn't true. There's no set age by which you have to lose your virginity. And I mean, speaking from my own personal experience, I mean, I'm not gonna go and like broadcast the exact date and whatnot, but I was
September
I was
22nd, 2003, or
I was into my 20s, and it wasn't because I didn't want to or thought I was weird or something. It was because I didn't meet the right person until then. There's no time limit on when you're going to find that person that you connect with.
but I think that that might be a biological response. The fact that okay, you're getting to a point when you are well in childbearing years and you have not been bearing children, and therefore you feel that sense of inadequacy because you're not doing any activity, whether you want children or not, that could be perpetuating
Yeah, and
Your
I mean, there's clearly there's also a social pressure of sorts to have done certain things by a certain age, and I'm not advocating well you should be 50 by the time or anything like that. It's just that people find things in their own time, and I don't think it would be necessarily fair to say that somebody has to do this by this age if they don't feel like they've found the person that they want to take that step with, I guess.
yeah, it's not a requirements lest lest they become totally inadequate and worthless to society.
I mean, from my perspective, I may have longed to find that connection, but I certainly didn't feel like it was something that I should rush because I didn't want to regret it.
But in today in hookup culture land,
I know that
that
makes you repressed or something.
sex negative.
Right. Next question. Are there asexuals who never want to have sex and only consider it as a vulgar biological process? If they force themselves to have sex for the sake of having children, could this affect them negatively?
You know what this question reminds me of?
What's that?
The posturing about, oh well, I'm able to resist biological biology until it conveniently suits them to not resist biology. Well, what do you expect? I need some way to work this out.
Right, seeking out my community or something.
Yeah,
Some sex repulsed asexuals will have sex for the sake of children. So, they'll just lay there, they'll be like, "All right, inseminate me."
like that King of the Hill episode where she says that her husband just lays on top of her and does his business, and she just thinks of those flowers.
That sounds like a wonderful experience. However, many of them opt for adoption or other methods that don't involve sex, which we've already read earlier. Forcing themselves into sex can have negative impacts, but if it's something they really want to do, there shouldn't be a problem. If it's something they really want to do, then I doubt they lack the feeling of desire. I mean, on what planet do you not desire sex and then continue to have sex?
Well, apparently those ones where somebody other than the person who keeps doing it and doesn't want it, because you know the whole rape culture thing. Well, we had sex and I wanted to, but then I decided later I didn't want to. I didn't say stop, but you know I didn't stop.
Can a person who does not have the desire for sex change their desire through medicines or consulting a sexologist? And here we go. Here's a great answer from somebody that hasn't given us any credentials or anything. Most likely, no. Asexuality is innate and is actually slightly different from a lack of sex drive. One does not need to have sex in order to be happy. I feel like this is okay, so we've got all these Tumblr kids and confused teenagers and whatnot that they're going through all this stage of confusion and finding themselves and attaching themselves to labels and all that nonsense. And then they come across this. Maybe they're confused about what they are or what they think they are, and they come across this question about consulting an expert. And then this person just says no. Like, don't do that. Don't explore different options. Just accept who you are.
Even though they don't know who they are.
I just feel like that could be potentially damaging. Getting your information the easy way, which is what everybody seems to do.
Yeah, that would be the biggest problem is that now the concept of figuring out who you are is too mentally taxing, and it's easier to simply just go online somewhere and have somebody tell you the answer.
Yeah, you're like, oh well, that kind of sounds like me sometimes. So I'm gender fluid, or I'm asexual because I don't always want to have sex. I'm pretty sure most normal people don't always want to have sex every set. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this just drives me nuts. So, I think my husband may be asexual. We've been married for almost 4 years, together for 7. Sex has always been a tough topic for us, but there's always been a reason. He has his reasons.
Uh-oh.
Sex realism. Now, he had a traumatic childhood and has struggled with intimacy, but is happy that I'm pregnant and is excited to be a dad. Is this asexuality, trauma, or both? Once again, we have the asexuality is innate, not caused by trauma. Sit down with your husband and have a heart to heart, focusing on your feelings and your concerns. Ask why he isn't as interested in sex as you are and how to handle this difference. It may help for one or both of you to get some counseling, as there's no easy answer here, and it could help to have, to help have support. I mean, I guess that's not, aside from the first line that is very authoritative. I don't think there's anything too terrible about this answer, but I think it may help for one or both of you. I think they should both get counseling if there's going to be any counseling here. And I appear to have lost my co-host, but we'll soldier on until he comes back. Let me check chat while that's happening. Just see what's going on here. Okay. For whatever reasons, the Skype call is not working. Every time there's a stream, there's always an issue, though. Next question is, are you wasting your time staying in a relationship with an asexual? Not if you are both communicating what you want from the relationship. The relationship may still involve sex or sexual activities, but it depends on the person. Everyone is different, and the only way to know if the relationship will work for you is to talk to that person. Obviously, once again, this just boils down to the simple fact that relationships require communication, and if you are the kind of person that doesn't think that you can have a relationship without the sexual and or romantic aspect, you're probably not going to want to be in that relationship very long, because sexual compatibility is a pretty important thing. And I'm trying. Okay, I think I got you back.
Yeah, that's apparently was my fantastic modem
Ah,
just arbitrarily rebooting.
of course it would. Every time a stream wouldn't be a stream on YouTube without a technical issue of some sort. I'm jumbling here. I got through one more question, but it wasn't anything too mind blowing. I think I'm asexual. How can I change? Here we go. Nothing is wrong with your sexuality, and it's not going to change. I'm so glad that somebody else could tell this person how they feel about their sexuality.
Well, they know better than that person who's
And
experiencing it
and,
does.
and I imagine that us saying this is going to have somebody in the comment section being like, "Yeah, you're a hypocrite because here you are telling other people their experience isn't valid." But if we're going solely by definitions, which they're not even using properly, what they're saying is a contradiction.
And I hate to bring this up because we've gone so long without having to do this, but if we want to be logical and reasonable about it, we're simply basing these theories or conjectures off of the definitions of the terms, like you said, and therefore it's producing a contradiction. I'm glad you said contradiction and not fallacy, by the way.
Okay, so here we go. Here's the advice. Network with the LGBTQIA community, which just keeps getting longer and longer.
Well,
AVEN.
why would you need to? Because the only one you would need to worry about is the A part of that, because the other ones apparently aren't going to understand your frame of reference.
Right. AVEN in particular. I don't even know what that is, but I imagine it's Asexuality Victim Extravaganza Network. Let's just call it that.
Well, I was assuming that there was just going to be a lady who has a catalog and you can buy stuff.
The AVEN lady.
Yeah.
Careful, you don't know her personal pronouns.
I don't, but I also don't care.
And learn about dating as an asexual unless you're aromantic. Your orientation is unusual, not wrong or broken, and you can live a happy life as an ace. I forgot to mention they refer to themselves as aces,
Well,
which reminds me, for some reason it reminds me when some douchebag is like leaving the room and he's like deuces.
yeah, I actually, I have a brother that would say that. Yeah, ace is the type of personality they have on opposite day.
That's awesome. Uh, wow. Yeah, I don't understand this whole community thing, but I mean, if first of all, if they're saying, well, this orientation, it's the way it is, it's not going to change. Uh, if you're interested in learning about dating, go here or whatever. Well, if you're interested in dating and you think you're an asexual, why don't you limit your dating pool to other asexual people? Why would you try to change somebody else's sexual orientation, which is exactly what you're claiming that you can't have done to you?
Right. I mean, why would you want to deal with the potential depression and anxiety from somebody who would realistically say, I can't deal with this whole you want to be around me, but I can't do anything with you, or I can't go further than you want me to go.
Right, and I know this is going to come down to their spectrum excuse, but if that's the case, I mean, it would really just boil down to communicating your wants and needs with the person you're getting involved with, which once again is a default for any healthy relationship.
Yeah, that's not limited to the asexual community. If you are a human being, you should be communicating with others about your needs and your desires.
Can women be asexual?
Oh boy.
Yes. Sexuality, oh, here we go. Sexuality and gender are completely different things. Asexuality exists in people of, once again, all genders. They have to say all genders now. They can't just say both genders. No, they got to say all genders because we have the Baskin Robbins variety of genders. Including asexual women have worked on this WikiHow article. Well, I mean,
Color me surprised.
no self-interest there whatsoever. My boyfriend believes he may be asexual. Lack of sex in our relationship has caused it to crumble. I love him and want to be with him, but I want an intimate relationship. Is there any way for him to get help and find out what's wrong, whether it is asexuality or low libido? Oh, here we go. Now, once again, this is a post where if the genders were reversed, we'd be getting into the rape culture territory. Like, how dare you try to, you know,
You need to respect her.
how dare you limit a woman's worth to what she can provide you in the bedroom?
Oh, by the way, I like that they said that they have an editor here, and yet we found all of these grammatical errors.
Yeah, that too. So we're back to nothing is wrong with your boyfriend. Your problem is a mismatch of sexual needs. Talk to him about your need for more sex and work out how to deal with this as a couple. You may need to use your hands more often. Or if your differing libidos are too much of a hurdle, it may be time to see other people.
They couldn't just say the word. They had to say use your hands.
That's
This definitely sounds like it's written by some professional adults.
seriously though. I mean, it's so messed up to just be like, well, nothing is wrong with your boyfriend. How do you know? Based on the context of this question, you don't know that because he's just saying that he believes this may be the problem. He doesn't have any proof for it. Maybe he should go see a doctor, see if there's some kind of hormonal imbalance or something.
There you go with proof.
My mistake, I guess. Last question. How do I reassure someone who is asexual? I believe this is the question that I showed you earlier. Let them know that you accept them as they are and that it's perfectly natural and okay to be asexual. Encourage them to reach out to the ace community. such as AVEN and inclusive LGBTQIA plus resources. I think they just put a plus at the end at this point because they're like, well, this is getting really long and we want it to include whatever we want, so let's just put a plus on there and then we can shoehorn whatever we want into the initialism.
Yeah, we don't have to worry. We don't want to have to worry about excluding somebody, so we'll just take the lazy approach.
I think that their addition of a plus is actually exclusive.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to complain that there's no letter to represent me. I'm waiting for them to add the P.
Oh yeah, and because that's another. They keep doing it too. They keep saying, "Hey,
It's an orientation. Even though being youthful or being a youth is a state of being that does not last for the rest of your life. So their relationships would, if that was accepted, their relationships would be limited to until their little, I don't even know what to call it because it's so messed up, until the little person that they have a relationship with grows up, and then they got to find somebody young again because it's an orientation. So let's see. Offer moral support and help if they're struggling with coming out, intolerance, bullying, etc. If they need to face a bigot, stay with them so they aren't alone.
It's like Michael Jackson. You're not alone.
The definition of bigot is so loose that could apply to anybody that even questions what's going on here.
And even just objectively, not even being combative. If you ask the question, you're a bigot.
Yeah, I mean, which is actually basically my approach, because personally, I don't care if somebody is not having sex. That's their life. If I'm not in the relationship with them, then I don't care what their so-called sexual orientation is, because it's not going to affect me. What is annoying is this need for so-called visibility. It's like you're not doing anything. Why do you need visibility for your choice not to partake in sexual relations?
And just to provide some clarity here, according to one dictionary, a bigot is somebody that prefers one's own group over the others. So I don't understand how these comments inherently suggest that you prefer your own group over another one.
That is the key question. I apparently, see, that's the problem entirely with these collectivist mindsets. It comes at it always from the point of, well, this person isn't part of our group, so they must be on the side of whatever opposing group we have shoehorned them into on the basis of our rudimentary understanding of their character, or something like their gender or their sexual orientation, which they may not even cling to as a personal identifier.
And you know who is very proficient at doing things of that nature? Cults.
Yeah. It's like since they can't separate themselves from their group or label, they don't seem to understand that some people just don't cling to those things or don't come at it from an ideological perspective. I don't consider myself part of the straight community. It's fucking retarded.
Wherever that is.
I didn't even know there was one. I mean, I'm sure there is now that we need a community for everything, you know. And some people are probably going around touting hashtag straight pride just to be antagonistic. But I think pride over your sexuality or, you know, these so-called innate things of your being or aspects of your being are kind of ridiculous because you were born that way, you know? If you were born that way, it's how can you really truly take pride in something that you didn't accomplish? You came out this way. You could have just as easily been born, you know, a black person could have been born a white person, or a white person could have been born a black. It's just location, circumstance. It's
and societal expectations. Because
right.
That's the only reason that that there's even a racial pride. It's either because of it's all because of society. Everybody is around me, and I prefer to be around my own group, or I prefer to be, or the extension to that is I prefer to be around my own group because of historical ideas of oppression or something, or some such nonsense, and therefore the only people that understand the alleged problems that I undergo are people in my own group, which is never true. There's
And
always times when there are people in your own social groups that don't understand your perspective.
right, and I mean, in a general, from a general perspective, I can somewhat understand why somebody may be more comfortable within the confines of their own cultural background, but to automatically claim that, somebody else from the outside is never going to understand or never going to see your point of view, it doesn't help anything. It only further segregates. That's like the whole cultural appropriation thing. You're not helping. You're just segregating people even more by saying mine, mine, mine. You can't do this because of who you are, which ironically is what racists have been telling people for ages.
But they're not racist anymore. They're race realists now.
Right. Uh yeah, I mean, this is basically, it really all comes down to everybody wants to be the victim of something, and here you've got people just saying I'm not interested in sex, but for some reason I need everybody else to acknowledge that and everybody else to tell me it's okay. You don't need that. I mean, I'm sorry you think it's rough for you. It's rough for everybody. Everybody struggles. Everybody's confused. Everybody has relationship problems. Just because you have claimed yours as an orientation does not make yours more valid or more important than anybody else's. And we don't need a movement for it to change anything. If you feel like people from the outside of your orientation don't understand, then seek out people within your so-called community and you can date them.
It won't make for a very exciting relationship because
Yeah, because you're choosing partners based off. I mean, not only is your relationship, you're saying, oh, I'm not going to do the things that are traditional of a relationship with each other, but you're also saying I can't be with anybody else outside of my community because they don't understand me.
but that is representative of the almost generational problem, or at least a problem that some I've seen lately argue has been uh, apparent for the last 5 or 6 decades, but certainly I've seen in my own, anecdotally speaking, in my own pedagogy, I guess, where where we have now made given people the impression that they are exceptional by virtue of the fact that they exist, and therefore because they are exceptional and they exist, everybody else must know about their personal attributes and characteristics.
It's
So
the I hate to use the word. It's the culture of narcissism and self-indulgence.
right, and it's just the one. Then you couple that with hedonism. So you have people telling you that, oh, you need to be this, or you, we realize that now we need to be more accepting of something because we said so. But and now not only that, but if you want to do something, then just do it.
Yeah.
And that is a heavily naive and oversimplification of what it takes or the effort involved in doing anything.
And that's another thing. I feel like a lot of these labels take away a person's need to put any effort into anything, because rather than actually figure themselves out, they go online, they type in, oh, I feel this way, to Google, and then they come across some article or post like this, and it just says, oh, well, this is who you are, and now you can accept it, and anybody else that tells you it's, or questions it or points to another possibility is just wrong and a bigot for not accepting you as you are. You are beautiful,
Right,
you are okay.
but like I said, that's cult like behavior.
Yep.
That's saying, oh,
if whatever those people say, they're wrong. They just don't understand. That is a clear sign of a cult. And then just the vehement and vitriolic attitude people have towards anybody that does not agree or does not recognize or identify, because now being an ally is a thing. And that makes people feel better about themselves when they can say they're an ally to something.
The interesting part about that whole feeling better thing is that these so-called allies seem to be the most self-loathing people I have ever come across in my life, because they will go out of their way to disparage themselves in the name of inclusivity.
Like the people who are like, if I'm being problematic,
Yeah, just let me know. I'm a cis white female, so I don't understand my problematic behaviors. So I need some POCs to come along, or some trans people to come along and show me my problematic behaviors, which is bullshit, because it brings the argument down to not the points or validity of reasoning and argument. It brings it down to identity politics. Like, oh, you have to listen to me because I am this, not because of what I am saying and the truth behind it.
Right, the content of my character is irrelevant. The label that I arbitrarily identify is what's important, and because I have that label, you have to accept what I say. And I mean, like I said, it's like the LGBT thing. They group it in there because people are too sensitive, and so they're never going to say anything negative about it, lest they be called a bigot or homophobic or something like that.
Intolerant, judgmental, small-minded, right. Bored, which I don't get.
Heaven forbid they ever do anybody in that community ever does anything questionable, which is, for the record, most of the activities of the representatives or the people that decide that they want to be representatives of these communities do. You can never say anything critical about it.
I feel like this is live and let live gone too far. Because while I am okay with, like, okay, as long as the person's not directly harming me or anybody else with their choices, then all right. But that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have an opinion on it or talk about it simply because you are coming at it from an outside perspective.
And I thought that was once upon a time a good thing, to have another perspective. I thought that's what people looked for, was alternative perspectives.
Well, these people don't, and that's why I think that their positions are so fragile that it hardly takes any effort to point out the hypocrisies or the contradictions within what they're saying, because they don't have a foundation that they've built it on that has combated against differing ideas. It's just, this is okay, this is the way it is, and anybody who says otherwise is, they don't count.
Well, I mean, they're also fragile just due to the fact that they have been raised to think that being narcissistic is okay, and that everybody needs their moment in the sun, and them not getting any attention or recognition, or they're somehow getting treatment that doesn't make them feel happy, means that they are somehow they're marginalized, and they are mistreated, they are somehow wronged, and therefore they need to go and either complain or do something worse. So they either rush to Tumblr so that they can look for the validation they so desperately seek, or they do something worse that actually does harm people. And I think that I think that in a consequence of these attitudes is also the live and let live mentality. The idea is that, well, we told people what to do so much as societally before, and I just don't think that's necessary, and it does more harm than good. I would argue that it does different harm.
Yeah, I mean, because in a sense, people do need a direction. I mean, you're basically, at this point, it's basically laid out like, well, you're a blank slate, you know? So you can look through this blanket list of labels, pick and choose your own identity. And I'm not saying that people don't need to be individuals or find themselves, because I absolutely do think so, but it's basically just leading people into a different direction now.
But a label or an identity should not be.
Right, it shouldn't be your sole identifier. It shouldn't be what you base your character, the entirety of your character around. Or your self-esteem and confidence, because I mean, first of all, just by extension of so many people existing in the world, people that you share this label with, some of them are not going to be good. And you're going to have differing ideas and differing opinions, and you might even hate some of them, and that should be okay.
And how are you going to reconcile it? Usually the ways they're not going to reconcile it. They're going to find a way to make an excuse when it's proper to make an excuse. And then other times, when they feel that they are the arbiters of truth, they're then going to speak against those people as though they're doing some sort of service to humanity by finally pointing out a logical flaw that they have.
So the last thing that I really just wanted to take a quick look at in this stream was this tweet that I found from Dr. Ruth, the world-renowned psychosexual therapist. And I found this through a Salon article, which was basically demeaning her for posting this and saying, oh, she's treating asexuality like it's not important and blah blah blah, because it's not important. But anyway, I mean, it does. If you're looking at it from a purely, I guess, biological aspect, it doesn't do anything to help the species continue.
And I think she was looking at it from that as well as a statistical standpoint.
Right, so it says studies say 1% of population is asexual. To me, that's 1% too much, but sexuality is a spectrum, so good that it's so low and not 10%. And the comments to this, I mean, this is from last summer, but first of all, we have Asexuality Archive, which is apparently a website.
That doesn't need to exist.
Yeah. Why is it 1% is too much? Asexuality is an orientation like any other. There's nothing wrong with us. It's like they keep repeating that same line because it's almost as though they don't believe it themselves. So they need everybody else to say it in order to validate them.
That'll make their lives better.
And then this is amazing because you've got this Asexuality Archive person saying, perhaps you should take some time to learn what asexuality is, and the website is whatisasexuality.com/intro, and let people know they're not broken. It's like, you're telling this to a doctor? Really?
Yeah, somebody who has spent years studying this topic versus somebody who has no credibility at all. But there we go with our whole appealing to authority.
They really went off too, because they just kept posting replies as though they were going to get something in return. 1% or 10%, we exist and there's nothing wrong with us. Words like this hurt. Instead of being accepted as a valid expression in the wide variety of sexuality, we're minimized and erased. You're not erased just because people don't take you seriously or take your identity as an orientation. I mean, no one can erase you. As long as you are a confident person with some sense of self-esteem, you cannot be erased. The only way you can be erased is if somebody murders you and disposes of the body in a way which there is no evidence of your existence. Somebody's probably going to take that out of context.
Yeah, they're going to hear just that one part.
They're like, asexuals are literally dying.
Yeah, here we go.
We're told we're broken. We're told we need to be fixed by friends, by family, by doctors. If a doctor is telling you that, maybe you should look into some testing and see if maybe there is something wrong. I mean, I know I would be doing that, but maybe I'm just brainwashed by the medical world.
Well, then now you know the other things that they do, and that contributes to the whole narcissism and special snowflake thing, the whole self-diagnosis. Well, I think I'm this, and so I am this.
And here we come. Here's asexual pride jumps in. This is a 20-year-old asexual. My goal is to help people like me and generate pride and awareness of asexuality. My Tumblr below is always open for questions and advice, and I really think that speaks for itself. We don't even need to comment on that. But they posted, the insinuation that we're a waste of space is offensive. Learn about our community before making blind, ignorant assumptions. And they always have to include words like that. Oh, you're being offensive. You're being ignorant. Simply because they posted something that you don't agree with.
How dare people have different opinions?
For years I felt, Asexuality Archive is back. For years I felt lost and alone and didn't know what was wrong with me because I wasn't, or didn't know what was wrong with me because I wasn't interested in sex. So, thus concluding that even you thought there was something wrong with you. But now I know I'm not the only one who feels like this. I'm not alone anymore. I am not broken anymore. That's like, hey, just because other people exist and share in your thought process, that doesn't make it a good thing or make it that so that you're not broken. I mean, would a rapist be like, oh, I felt so alone because I was the only one raping anybody, and then I found the community, and man, we're all rapists, and we're in this together. I mean, I get that that's a little bit of an extreme comparison, but damn.
I can't wait until we have a rape culture. I'm sure they said back in those times. But even if you were trying to have something a little bit more civil, like, I thought I was the only person that didn't hate black people. But then I found these group of people who wear white hoods, and I discovered that they hate black people as well. So now I'm really happy and pleased that there's a world I can live in where people hate people that don't look like me.
Great line of reasoning there. A+, guys, or aces.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah, so, the comments just go on like this, and we have an as a qualifier here. As a sex therapist, you ought to know that some asexuals have libidos and usually take care of it themselves. So it's not as if you'd never get a question from one. Also, there are many aces who are in relationships with what the hell's an allosexual?
Other.
Okay. I've never heard that term before.
I haven't either, but I know what the prefix allo means.
I mean, I'm actually curious as to what it means in their world, because it probably doesn't mean the same thing.
It means something other than the gender that you are, which is, once again, superfluous, because we already have a term for that. But they don't want to say hetero, because that implies that there's only two.
Yeah, I mean, this is just ridiculous that you have all these people with, I guess barring the actual as a sex therapist person, with no credentials, just coming out and saying there's nothing wrong, you're wrong, you're a bigot, you're ignorant. And it's like, where did you get your information that makes you less ignorant? You went to a couple of websites that spouted the narrative that you wanted to hear and then decided that was the actual truth based upon the idea that it goes with your opinion?
I mean, the fact that there's a 20-year-old that is making a website for the people, I mean, that person hasn't done anything long enough to even provide enough opinions. What if there's something like, an asexual going through a divorce? Well, he or she is 20 and probably hasn't been married. So how is he or she going to write about that? How is that person going to write about anything?
So is this...
Other than his, I'm going to just say his, own myopic interpretation of life and sexuality.
So here's some great credentials. So this person calls themselves... is that supposed to be a weird spelling of Kira, or are they actually calling themselves Queera? But anyway, they're response is, I think asexuals are very happy in themselves, thank you very much. Don't demean them. It's their sexuality, not a condition. And if you'd like to hear their bio, feminist potato eater, failed vegetarian, disappointing my parents since 1991. As if that's the thing to be proud of now.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like, oh, I have to
Break away from those Christian conservative parents.
Well, I mean, Twitter bios are a good example of just the narcissism and arrogance people have. The fact that they just throw out all these labels and all these terms as though some random stranger is going to look and care anything about what they've been doing with their lives. They want to see does the person have good content. But to nowadays, the banal act of listing out a bunch of labels, and it even disgusts me that Twitter allows them to put hashtags in their bios now, is sufficient enough for people to think, oh, that's an interesting person.
Yeah, the hashtag thing in the bios really needs to go away, but it never will, because that's the nature of Twitter, stupidity. Oh wait, speaking of hashtag aces aren't broken, hashtag educate Dr. Ruth. Thank goodness it's not 1930 anymore, and this thinking isn't entirely mainstream anymore. They always have to do that. They always have to take the trip back in time, because, we were just so ignorant of everything back then.
Right. Even though there were people that... Never mind. I'm not even going to try to argue that. There were people who were celibate, therefore they were voluntary, and they were relatively accepted well enough. I mean, nobody's going to shame a Buddhist monk for being celibate. And they're not going to shame any priest or anybody that works in a monastery. That didn't happen in the 30s, but then again, what do I know? The 30s, I thought people were too busy spending their time on things like being able to eat.
Well, that's not important, apparently. I found another gem here. It's horrible to see a doctor make such an ignorant and bigoted comment. Why the hate? There's no reason for it. So the bio of this person says, SLP in Boston, MA. Main focus, adults and kids with complex needs. Expat, feminist. CHD, survivor. Queer ace, into comics. SFF, SJ issues, and the Red Sox.
That's a whole lot of nothing.
But the sad thing is that so many people read these things and then think that that's an indication of actual content. It's like, it's saying so much without saying anything at all. It's fancy terminology, which not even. Yeah, it's just dressed up words that don't really have a set meaning to them, because they're always changing the definitions or always adding things to them. They argue for labels, and then they're so fluid with those labels that they don't even matter anymore.
They just need a way to feel important. And if something becomes out of vogue, then they need to find something else.
Well, I feel like we've beaten this into the ground, and I'm sure that most people that agree with the asexuality narrative will come into this and not listen to the entire thing and take things out of context and decide that we're just being hateful. But
when all they're saying is you're not going to accept me, and therefore my feelings are hurt. You're not going to accept a random stranger
that I have no need to accept, because I'm never going to come across you, or you're never going to be part of the dating pool that I pick a partner out of, so it doesn't even matter. Like, people get so caught up in what other people think about their choices. It's like, if you're happy in your choice, if you think you're being true to yourself, just do it. You don't need everybody in the world to come out and say, this is okay and pat you on the back. That's just not how reality works, and it's never going to work that way until we get to the point of being able to brainwash people to agree with the same narrative. I mean, I guess arguably we have come to that point a little bit, considering there's so many people out there that just accept these things without question, but on a widespread 100% of the population scale, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I'm glad, because we need people that are going to question things. And I get it. There, even some people that consider themselves, and I hate that this is even a thing, part of the skeptic community, which is another community that doesn't need to be a community. I know some of those
Right,
people.
because what that implies is they're the only ones that think about things.
Right, and
Nobody else ever has any questions or questions the validity of something, which is ironic because then you go and you pay attention to this community and they only question the things that everybody else in the community questions. So they don't question everything.
right, it's selective, and it's basically just as selective as this kind of stuff. And I feel like that should be another topic for another day, because I think there's probably some interesting things to talk about there that I'm sure we can be hated for at a later date. But on that note, I think we've wrapped it up. Do you have anything to go out on?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, well, I'm good as well, so we're going to end the broadcast now, but I see we had some people in the chat. I appreciate you guys coming out and watching and having a discussion, even if we weren't able to keep up with it with you. We were kind of focused on what was going on, but as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Take care.